Defensive side of the football. Yes. BYU, granted, Puka Nacua was out. I'll give you that. Gunnar Romney was out. I'll give you that too. They are still a machine. A machine. And Baylor was really physical defensively. Like, they put a whoop on some boys. I'm going to say something controversial to get this one out of the way. The targeting that they called on Dylan Doyle, it was a targeting. I was pretty confident they got that call correct. You just that his head's coming up at a receiver who's defenseless. I get that it's football. Like, when are we going to be able to play football and it just be football? But that's the way the rule's written. That's just like, when you look at the rule book, that is what a targeting is. I see why they called it, and it's fine. You have to play through it. You can't change that now. What I liked defensively, though, again, the physicality was there. Matt Jones was impeccable. 8 tackles, had a sack, had a tackle for loss, had a pass breakup. I thought he stepped up, even though he had that defensive pass interference that was pretty egregious. He jumped on a guy's back. He stepped up in a big way, especially without having Dylan Doyle, your senior leader, out there. Devin Lemire had a couple of tackles as well. He's a freshman safety. Al Walcott, a few tackles, a couple pass breakups. I know he wasn't perfect in coverage, but across the board, Devin Neal, TJ Franklin, Cole Maxwell. Hopefully Franklin also is okay. Those guys made me really confident what the defense has moving forward. Physical, big body. They were able to get it done at the defensive front as well. A lot better, in my opinion, than they did last week. Siaki Ika, Gabe Hall, Jackson Player getting pressure on the quarterback. It felt like Jaron Hall. The pocket never truly collapsed, really, but he was constantly under pressure. Now, those are really good superlatives for a unit that still ultimately lost the ball game. They did have, I'll give you another bright spot too, because I could rave about the defense for a while, really. 3 separate 3-and-outs on the same BYU possession there late, where BYU marches down the field with like 6 minutes to go. Baylor ultimately gets the ball back before they give the ball back to BYU for that last missed field goal before you go to overtime. That grit defensively said a lot to me. And the glaring thing that I circled, secondary on 2-minute drill. BYU scored in 1 minute and 35 seconds going into halftime. It felt like when they wanted to take the top off over the top, they could do it. A big part of that is you're missing Jalen Petrie and you're missing Terrell Bernard. Don't want to make excuses because you're without guys that are NFL caliber players. So it's obvious that there's going to be a learning curve there when those guys are not in the game. But Jaron Hall could launch the ball deep, could get outside the pocket and run. Siaki Ika, Gabe Hall, Jackson Player, Garvin Randolph, these guys aren't as fast as Jaron Hall. If they get good pressure, the pocket starts to collapse, Hall's able to get to the outside. You have to have somebody like a Jalen Petrie who can not only play in coverage, but be right there in the quarterback's face in an instant. Baylor doesn't have that right now. There's not that guy who's inside, outside, in your face, still in coverage, that's almost everywhere on the field. That's what Jalen Petrie, Terrell Bernard were. They were everywhere on the field at all times. There weren't a lot of those guys for Baylor on Saturday. And that's why the poor secondary, after especially Poffenbarger for flipping Albany, ran the football decently well. They're thinking, shoot, I've got to be in coverage on this receiver, but also what if the quarterback runs and what do I mean, if the play breaks down, then I got to go try to tackle that guy. And it felt like the secondary was just, I don't know if confused is the right word at times, but almost like they were overstimulated to where Hall would chunk the ball deep and he was completing it at a decent rate when they wanted to. That was the weird part to me too. Did you notice this? It's like it felt like when BYU really wanted to complete a pass, they really wanted to score, really wanted to get a first down. They did it at a pretty solid rate. But then, in just the game overall, the passing game wasn't spectacular. The run game was held to like 3 yards per carry or less. It was just odd how BYU was almost clutch-ish when they needed to be, aside from their special teams. Outside of that, though, I thought the defense was solid. I give the defense an A-, maybe a B+. Yeah, they held BYU 50 points against USF to 20 points in regulation, that touchdown in overtime, and a couple missed kicks. All that put together, offense, bad. Just not good Saturday. Just not good. If you're objective about it, that is where Baylor lost the game. You held an opponent to 20 points in regulation. You have to Score more than 20 points. Missed PAT. That sucked. Little mistakes, the penalties. Yes, all of that put together, but still, your offense has to put you in a position, your quarterback, to an extent, yes, your OC, your O-line, your running back, nobody's completely exempt, in a position to score more than 20 points. If you told me that BYU is always going to score 20 in regulation, I put this house, this room you see right here, I have an 8-bedroom house. I only live in one of the bedrooms. The other are for 7 other guys. I put this house down in Baylor to win. Your offense has to give you more than that. They have to. There's like no two ways around it. Easy for me to say. I get it. But that's just BYU gifted you. We're only going to score 20 points. What can you do offensively? And Baylor said, we'll take 20 of our own, send it to OT, and miss a field goal. All right. Soapbox over. Offense, no. Defense, yes. Atmosphere, wow. Unbelievable. And just take into account how wild that game was. Like, it's 12:30 just for a second. Think about how blessed you are, even though Baylor lost, to have watched a game against such a respectable opponent that was so good. A classic in college football, a game that BYU and Baylor fans alike will talk about for years to come, that is now a part of a budding rivalry. The rivalry is solidified. The altercation, whatever you want to call it. Count yourself blessed for the atmosphere that Baylor fans got to witness, whether on TV or in the stadium. Count yourself blessed for the level of competition that Baylor and BYU both played, because it looked like two big, physical, fast teams going blow for blow at each other. Everything put together in this one was just magical. It was sloppy at times. It was gross at times. There were a lot of penalties. BYU's defense kept blocking illegally or whatever that was. But just the majesty of college football that we saw this weekend, and Baylor BYU being a part of that, even in a loss, there are a lot of great takeaways. A lot that Baylor can learn from this. That's a big part of what Dave Aranda talked about in the post-game press conference.